We're so close yet so far. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So before we start, can we begin with a word of prayer? Our dear, gracious, loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us here this evening. And as we talk about this all-important stewardship topic of investing, we ask that your Holy Spirit guide and lead us, and may you guide our discussion, and may this all turn our minds towards you, that we may serve you better as stewards. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I'd like to welcome you to session number 12 of our series. And today this is the overview of the world of investments for newbies, not dummies. Okay, so this means that this is a class for people who have no prior experience to investing or have a little. And if you have a lot of experience, we'd like to ask you to share with us some of your expertise. But today, I'm just going back to sort of my days starting out as an investor. And I thought to myself, okay, somebody, we all have to start somewhere. So I'm looking at this through eyes of someone who is just beginning. Okay, so I hope what I share with you this evening will be helpful, and I do have to issue that disclaimer that I am not a financial advisor, so anything we discuss here is not a substitute or meant to be advice that is to be taken professionally. I am a pastor, of course, and I'm just here sharing what I know. But please do consult a professional financial advisor before you actually make big moves in your finances. So having said that, we are going to start, and our discussion topics today, we're going to cover like so much, and I'm going to try and simplify it as much as I can, and hopefully this won't be too complicated, but as we go through it, feel free to stop me at any time to ask questions. Okay, so first we're going to look at investing for retirement and how it works. Then we're going to go to surveying the investment options that are out there and how they work. And then we're going to look at the factors you need to consider when you are investing. Okay, so I don't know if you remember this slide, but in a previous sermon, we were saying, does more money solve your problem? And we found that it doesn't, because if your income goes up, your expenses also go up. So the idea is you want to create as big a gap between your expenses and your income to create savings. But I showed you this slide, and they took a sampling of this family's budget or finances. And I figured since you already saw this on the screen, we're going to use this as our working example for our session today. Now, the gross salary, so you have here gross salary, expenses, and then the total expenses and what's left. So what's left is the savings. Okay. So out of $5 grand, they only had $7,300 left. All right. Hi Tracy. We have some handouts here. So now, okay, if you were to advise these people, okay, on how to become better stewards, what would be some suggestions you would have?
Give me the $7,300 because that's what I make in a month anyway.
Okay. Well, number one, I want you to notice here in the salary, they're actually doing something pretty good. They're
already invested.
Yeah, 401k contributions. Okay. Now, what you're going to see here is investing is happening at two levels. The first level of investing is going to happen with their retirement funding. Okay? And then the next level is going to be what they do with this. Okay, but before we get into any of that, my advice to these people, number one, get rid of your high-class cars and just get Toyota Corollas. Okay. A lot cheaper, more dependable. You're not going to have these big car payments. Next thing I tell them is move from a $1.5 million home to a modest $800,000 home. You can do it. Downsizing, not too bad.
They really need to increase their 401k contributions.
Okay.
They're not even putting 10% of their income into their retirement savings.
Okay, so what we want to first do is we want to talk to this family and we want to increase this.
Well, I mean, if you take a look at your tax bracket, you might be able to reduce it from the 40% by what you put in your 401k and charitable contributions.
Right. So let's kind of go in order. Okay. So first, okay, there are 3 vacations a year. How about just doing one big vacation and one staycation? How about that? Right? I mean, okay, and then you've got children's lessons, sports, piano, violin. Okay, how many instruments do they want their kids to play? Right? I mean, how about one at a time? Okay? Or then you've got other stuff here that they can trim. Okay, food for 4, include date night every 2 weeks. Okay, that's not too bad. But the idea is they can trim some of their expenses to increase their savings, right? Okay, so if they did that, this savings would increase. And what they could do now is, like Mike said, take some of that savings. Because what did we say that we would do with savings? Now that you've increased your savings, you want to create an emergency fund. You want to
3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months, okay, and then what else do you want to do? Pay off your debts, right? You want to save for future purchases, and then you want to make investments. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to go into that, but as Mike pointed out, this here is going to be your first level of investing. Okay, it's the part that you and I don't really participate in much. But we're going to talk about 2 levels of investment, that first and this second. So first, you remember seeing this in the sermon, your income over your entire lifetime. Basically, you start out as a dependent, as a teenager. You finish school, get a job, you start launching your career, then you start maturing in that career, you hit your prime earning years, and then you hit retirement, where your income drops. And the idea is, while you're earning, you have to somehow save and invest to make sure you have enough money to live out the rest of your life over here. Okay, so retirement investing is your #1 level of investing, and it's the thing you should start with the earliest. Okay, why do I say that? Because remember in our sermon on Sabbath, you have to take the long-term view. So which means you need time on your side. Which means the earlier you start, the better you will be. I wish there were more young people here, because if I had known this when I was 25, I would have already started saving for retirement. And $1,000 put in when you're age 25 is going to make more money in retirement than if you put in $2,000 at age 35. Okay, so the time that you're putting the money in for investing matters. So that if you have kids, start them out young, teaching them investing, because they're going to be much better off in the future if they start investing earlier. Now, having said that, how do you save for retirement? Okay, the average American is going to stop working at about 65 to 67, right? It's my generation now, it's 67, right? Okay, so what are you going to live off of when you're retired? Well, the government is going to give you Social Security.
If it's still there.
if it's still there. And Social Security is basically, you're taxing the current generation, well, you're being taxed, and that money is going to be handled by the government and returned to you in certain portions when you retire. Okay? So it's basically forced savings. You can't say no, the government is taxing you, you have to give the money so that they can give it back to you when you get older. But Social Security itself will probably not take care of your retirement needs because it will probably fall short of what you need. So you will have to have other sources of income. Okay? Now the government has created certain plans that will sort of be incentives for you to save for retirement. There's two types. The first is called Individual Retirement Arrangement, okay? Commonly known as the IRA. Okay, the second type is what you call employer-sponsored arrangements. Now, a traditional IRA, there's several flavors of it. Okay, you have a traditional SEP and simple. These here are versions for people who are self-employed or who have small businesses. Okay, so if you are self-employed or have a small business and you don't have one of these, you may want to look into that. Another is called the Roth IRA, and the other is what is called an annuity. Okay, now, let's talk about these. Does anyone here have an IRA? Okay. Okay, so Mike, you have one, both of you? Okay, who else? Okay, can anyone tell me what is the IRA exactly? This kind, does anyone know? Well, what is the idea behind it? Okay, Mike.
Okay, so IRAs were kind of employers' way of saying, hey, it's too expensive to have pensions, so hey, everybody, manage your own retirement. We're going to pitch it that, you know, it's going to be better for you because you have more freedom to choose. But honestly, it's your employer pension, if you can get a pension, is actually probably going to pay you more than your IRA is going to do.
Okay, so we're jumping ahead here.
I'm just telling you where the background, what happened with the IRAs and the 401ks and pensions. But anyway, so the traditional IRA is basically you can claim it on your taxes as tax deferred. Your Roth IRA is going to be taxed now, not taxed later. So if I put into a Roth IRA, I'm paying the taxes on it currently, and I'm hoping that in the future I'm going to be making more money when I'm pulling it out. That way I don't have to pay taxes when I'm pulling out.
Okay, so let's talk about the ideas behind this. Individual means you are the one initiating it, right? Okay, so you go to a bank or a brokerage or some financial institution, and you basically say, I want to save for retirement. And they say, okay, you want to open an IRA. Now, what that is if you receive a paycheck or you receive income, before you pay taxes on it, the government gives you a chance to take some of that income and put it away in this account without paying tax on it. Okay, so the government says, fine, we want you to save for retirement, so take some of your money before we tax it, put it away in this special account. And what we're going to allow you to do is we're going to allow you to take that money in that account and you can invest it and let it grow and grow and grow. And then when you reach retirement, we will let you withdraw all that money. But it's at the time that you're withdrawing it that you have to start paying taxes on it. Okay? So the idea is no tax now because you're going to pay the tax on the back end. Okay?
And you're hoping you're making less than the back end than you're making now, so you're in a lower tax bracket, so you're paying less taxes on it.
Right. Okay. The idea is, why would you want to do that? And the idea is that when you are working, okay, essentially your income is supposed to be high, so your tax bracket is high. Okay, but when you stop working, you're supposedly not going to be having income, so your tax bracket is supposedly lower. So you would be paying less taxes if you started paying the tax at the back end through an IRA. That's the idea behind it, right? So now, if you don't have a traditional IRA, it's okay, there's other options, but a Roth IRA is named after a senator, Senator Roth, okay, who is the first one who proposed this to legislature. His idea is, well, instead of paying the tax on the back end, what if we let you pay the tax on the front end? And then you don't have to pay any tax later. So it's really the timing of when you're going to pay taxes. So you get your paycheck or you get your business income, they're going to tax you now, so you pay the tax now, and then you go and you put money in that special account, and then you invest it, let it grow, and when you retire, you can just take it, it's all yours. No more tax to pay. Okay? So that's the difference between these two. And the whole idea is it's using tax as an incentive for you to save for retirement. Because the government can't afford to sustain all of us in retirement. So they're enticing you to save on your own. Does that make sense? Okay. Does anyone have a Roth IRA? Okay. Mine does. Next, there's something called an annuity. How many of you have heard of this? Okay. An annuity is an insurance product that, here's the idea. Okay. You go to an insurance company, and the insurance company says, give us a bunch of your money. Okay? And what we will do is we're going to use it in our business, and then when you get to retirement, we are going to give you back that money in a stream of income. So how much would you want in retirement? Do you want $1,000 a month coming in? Say that your Social Security check is $1,000, and say you need $2,000 to live per month. Well, you can tell the annuity, okay, I want $1,000 every month until I die. Okay? And then those guys are going to do the math. They're going to look at statistical tables to see the probability of what age you might die. And then they're going to do all this complicated math, and they're going to sell you this package. And they're going to say, you pay us a premium of X amount dollars every month, and then when you reach age 60-something, we will start giving that back to you in $1,000 chunks until you die. Yes?
There is a maturity date for that annuity.
Maturity date. Yeah, so the maturity date is, you can't, do you have an annuity? Okay. So the maturity date basically is you can't access any of the funds before that maturity date. Right? You're basically paying into it. And then when it reaches maturity date, it's only after that date that you can begin taking out. You cannot take out before the maturity date. Right? And the insurance company makes money off of this because they do it with millions and millions of people. And the premiums of other people are actually paying the money that you'll be receiving later. Risk management is interesting. Okay, so these would be your basic 3 categories of individual retirement accounts. The next is what you would call employer-sponsored accounts. That means it's your employer who actually initiates it. And you get hired, and you don't know anything about retirement, and your employer says, okay, we've got something to help you save for retirement. And it's broken up into two categories. One is called the defined benefit plan, and the other is the defined contribution plan. Okay, this is your traditional pension. Does anyone here have a pension? Okay. Can anyone explain to me what a pension is? Okay, Mike.
Well, back in the day, almost everybody got a pension, but what the employer said is because you worked here for X number of years, 20, 30 years, we'll take care of you in retirement and we'll give you a certain amount of money every month. You just have to put in 20 years, 20, 30 years with our company and we'll take care of you after that. We're a big family. Got expensive.
Okay. So basically, say you worked for
GE.
GE. Okay, say you work for GE. And you work for GE for the past 30 years. And you retire. And GE has a pension plan. That means during the time that you were working, GE, aside from paying you your regular salary, was setting aside some money for you as retirement. But they were holding it in their name as an asset of the company. Okay? And then when you retire, they basically give it to you, either in lump sum or in payments. Okay, that's what's traditionally known as a pension plan. Okay, now, the majority of us will not have a pension plan. We will have what is called a defined contribution plan. That's what is known as a 401k. Does anyone have one of those? Okay, you have one of those too. Anyone else? Okay, a 401k is the retirement plan for if you work in the profit sector. 403b is what they call it if you work for a nonprofit organization. And 457 is what they call it if you work for the government. And the idea is this. Your employer will say, okay, we're gonna put money towards retirement so long as you also put money towards retirement. Okay, so they're gonna say, we're gonna give you a minimum 3% of your salary as retirement, and we want to encourage you to give. So you should give something, okay? And to entice you, they will say, give 3% of your salary so that it becomes 6% together. And if you do that, we're gonna match. We're gonna give more to you. And they will maybe match another percentage. So altogether, you would get 7% more. So in other words, it's sort of teamwork between you and your employer to build up your savings for retirement. And the money that's put into there is usually invested. And if any of you have one of these, you usually will receive a statement from your broker or whatever every quarter to show you how your retirement money is being invested and how it's used. Okay? Does anyone, okay, so you have this. Does anyone else have, besides Mike and Frank, does anyone else have any of this? Okay, Lima, what do you have? IRA. What type? Traditional?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, traditional. So if the rest of you don't have any of this, start looking into it. It's important. The longer you wait, the quicker you get towards retirement, the less time you actually have to build up your retirement savings. Again, if you're a small business owner or you're self-employed, look into these IRAs. There are advantages there for you. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Okay, Auntie Mimi, you're retired now. Which sources of income are you getting? Social Security and pension? No, okay. Anyone else here retired? All right. So next, we're gonna go now. So we talked about level 1 investing, which is retirement investing. So this family was putting 36,000 into retirement every year. And it's being invested, and depending on, it was a 401k, which means that they're going to pay the tax on the back end. They're not being taxed now for it. Now, after they do that, and they have savings here, they may want to take this savings and increase what they put in there for retirement. Okay, Mike was alluding to that before. Because the government allows you to put a certain amount into retirement every year. A good number to put towards retirement is 10%. That's a good number to put. Okay, but say that they don't do that. Of the $7,300 that they have in their savings, let's say that they'll put $2,000 towards an emergency fund. Okay, let's say they put, we gotta make sure this adds up. Okay, so $2,000 towards an emergency fund. And they need to pay down debt. Say that they don't have any, they paid off all their credit cards and everything, the only thing left they have is the mortgage. So let's say that they decide that they're going to make an extra payment on the mortgage to bring down the principal. Okay, so let's say $1,300. What's that now? That's, okay. And then what else should they do? Save for future purchases. Say that, what's something they're going to buy in the future? Say that their cars are, they got the Toyota Corollas, it has 300,000 miles on it, they're, yeah, Corollas can get that high, that's why I like them. Okay, so let's say it's 250,000, or no, 200,000 miles on it already. And they know they're going to have to buy Corollas, another new car soon. So they're going to set some money aside for that. So let's say they set aside $1,000. That's for savings to replace their car. How much do they have left? So this is what, 43? So 3,000. Okay. So what are they going to do? Ah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, see what finances does to people? Hold on. I think the leg thing was not started.
So did the other.
There you go. Yeah.
Low blood sugar.
Yeah.
Gotta take this off. It looks like.
Extend it out. There you go.
Okay.
You'll put it on the chair. Still leaning.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so they're putting $2,000 towards an emergency fund, throwing $1,300 extra payment towards the principal of their mortgage. They're saving $1,000 to replenish their cars, so they have $3,000 left to do what?
Probably had to save for their vacation if they're going to do that, so that they don't have to go down in debt.
Well, they put their vacation in the budget,
Okay.
so we're asking them to trim down to one vacation plus a staycation.
Okay.
So hopefully this will increase. And they're downsizing from a $1.5 million home to an $800,000 home. And we're chopping some of the perks that their kids have. Poor kids, so deprived. Okay, now, you got $3,000 you're going to invest. How are you going to invest it? What should you do with it? Okay, now, again, here we go. Whenever you have savings, divide it up among these 4 goals. Right? This is what we studied in our sermon. You want to take a picture? Go for it. All right. So now, your money is being put away for retirement. It's in a special account. But it's just sitting there. It has to be invested. You now have $3,000 of extra cash that you can also invest outside of retirement. You could choose to take this and put it into the retirement account so you have more when you retire, or you can choose to not put it in a retirement fund and do all kinds of other types of investing. Okay, so how are the money in your retirement account, how is that invested? And if you want to do investing on your own with this, what should you do? That's now where we look into investment options and how they work. Now, okay. Before I go there, you have a handout. Does anyone not have one? Lima, do you have a copy? Okay. Do you remember our accounting equation? What was it? Assets equals? Okay. Liabilities plus? Does everybody remember what these things mean? Okay, God taught Adam this equation in the Garden of Eden. And if you memorize this, you will understand all of your finances and all of investing. Okay, what are your assets? What you possess. What you possess is composed of
Debt, which you actually own.
Money that you borrowed and money that's yours. Right? This equation also tells you the 2 types of investments that make up all assets. I want you to look at your handout. You see the equation at the top? This tells us that all assets are either debt investments, investments under the liability category, or they are equity investments, investments that involve ownership. If you have money, the only 2 ways you can make more money is by lending your money out to someone else and charging interest. Or you use that money to go into business. Okay? That's the only 2 ways you can use money to make money. So what you see here is an introduction to the world of investments. Let's look at number 1. Liabilities, and we're going to look at debt investments. Okay, the idea here is you're lending. Okay, now the first square over here is what we're all familiar with. If you have a bank account, you are actually already an investor. Okay, the idea is, number 1, you loan your money to the bank, and you are called what? A depositor. Okay? Now the bank is going to offer you several products. Okay? They're going to say, oh, well, you can open a checking account. You can open a savings account. Who has a checking and savings? All right. Everybody here should have that, at least. Okay. And then you're going to look at the signs of the bank, and you're going to see some other products there. they're going to offer you high yield savings account, a money market account, and a CD. Okay, can someone explain? I know Mike knows all the answers to these, so I'm going to ask someone else. Can anyone else tell me what these products are? Yes.
Well, certificate of deposit is basically you have a certain amount of money that you're willing to tie up for a period of time at a certain interest rate.
Right.
To where you are able to gain interest on that money. Let's say it's 3 years or 5 years or something like that.
Yes. Basically, a CD is you are loaning your money to the bank for a certain amount of time. You will go and you will see, oh, 3 months in the bank, a 3-year CD offering 2.1 APY. Have you seen that in bank windows? Okay. What this basically is saying is that you're going to lock your money up with the bank for 3 years. And at the end of the 3 years, you're basically going to receive this amount of return. APY stands for average percentage yield. And what that does is it accounts for compound interest. Okay, what is compounding? Does anyone know what compounding is? Compound interest? Okay, like it's interest upon interest. Okay, so say I put in $1 and I receive 5% interest. How much is my money going to be worth? $1.05. But then the next day I have $1.05 and it's going to receive 5% interest. So 5% of not $1, but of $1.05. Okay, and then it grows and grows, and that's how your money gets multiplied through debt investing. All right. So, so here you're seeing checking account, savings account. High yield savings is basically you have a savings account, and they're going to say keep a minimum of $5,000 in there at all times, and we will give you higher interest on that savings. Okay, the next is what they call a money market account, which is very similar. There's a money market mutual fund, which is different, but basically it's also a higher interest earning account. And then you have your certificate of deposit. Okay, how you make your money? You make your money through compound interest, and that interest is paid at the maturity date. So your CD, you can't touch that money until after 3 years.
Without penalty.
I mean, you could, but you'll get a penalty. And the penalty is
pretty high. You're
going to be paying the interest back to the bank because they would have lost from you withdrawing early. Okay, the advantages to these kinds of investments are they are safe, which means the principal is preserved, and it's FDIC insured. What does that mean? FDIC insured. Okay. Mike?
That means if your bank goes under, the federal government will reimburse you.
Yes.
Up to $100,000 or whatever the... Yeah.
FDIC means Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Okay, so the government is backing up your bank accounts up to a certain amount. Okay, so you're safe. You're totally safe. Okay, and that's advantage 1. Advantage 2 is that it's pretty liquid. It means that it's as close to cash as you can get without it being cash. Okay, so you can pretty much take the money out when you need it. Of course, there'll be penalties and stuff, but it's pretty liquid. It's not like a house where if you need the money, you gotta wait till the house sells. This thing's pretty liquid. Now, the disadvantage is that these products, remember, there's a relationship between risk and reward from Sabbath's sermon. What's the relationship? The higher the reward, the higher the risk. The lower the risk, the lower the reward. Because these carry very few risks, you're going to get very little return. So you might want to up the ante, and you might want to go a little riskier. Okay, so you go from this square down to this square. Say that you're lending your money out and you want higher returns, so you're going to take it a notch up. And you are going to become, instead of a depositor, you're now going to become a bondholder. Ooh, this is where we get into bonds. Okay, now a bond is simply another term for you're loaning your money instead of a bank. You're loaning it to a company or to a government or to somebody else besides a bank. Okay? And when you loan that money, it's called, you're buying a bond. Now, number one here, you say, you can buy individual bonds. Okay, so A, government, B, company. So say, for example, treasury bills and municipal bonds. Here we go. Here's an example. Honolulu County is building the Honolulu Rail. They're going to raise the funds to complete this project by, number one, raising property taxes. Okay, and number two, they're going to sell municipal bonds. Okay, basically, Honolulu County is going to say, okay, we're going to sell $500 bonds. Okay, so basically, this paper they're going to give you is going to be worth $500 after 3 years. And right now, you're only going to pay $300 for it. So I'm selling you a piece of paper for $300. And this paper promises that you're going to get $500 after the maturity date, or after 2-3 years. Okay, so the government is basically, Honolulu County is basically borrowing your money, and then they're going to be taxing on this side to pay you back. So all they're doing is shifting money around, right? But ultimately,
you get to pay yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Right? But ultimately, that's the idea behind bonds. If you're a company, say that me and Bernie went into business, and we set up Bernie Enterprises. Bernie and Eric Enterprises. B&E Enterprises. Okay, and we needed money to start, so we took out a business loan. But at the same time, we went to people like yourselves, and we made a legal document, and we said, we're going to sell you a bond for B&E Enterprises. B&E promises that at the end of 5 years, you give us $400 now, and we're going to give you $800 at the end of 5 years. And you say, cool. And you go, you give me the money, I give you the paper. You just bought my bond. Does that make sense? Okay. So now, here's the thing. Number two, you can buy individual bonds like that, or number two, you can buy bond mutual funds. Okay, now we're getting into some terminology. Have you heard of the term mutual fund?
Omaha Mutual.
Actually, you know, it's very interesting. They use the same word, but they mean two completely different things. Okay, let's see, mutual fund. Omaha Mutual. They kind of mean the same thing, but in two very different ways. What does the word mutual mean?
You have a group of people who have agreed upon to fund a investment equally, and they're going to get a return back on that at a determined time set by the fund.
Okay. But the word mutual, what does it mean?
Group of people with common interests.
Yeah.
Okay. If I have a mutual benefiting relationship with Tyler, that means that together we benefit from each other, right? Omaha Mutual is an insurance term. It means that together, if we pool all our money together and divide the risk among ourselves, when calamity happens, your premiums will go to support me. And then when something happens to you, my premiums will go to support you. And that's how insurance provides coverage in the event of calamity. We're mutually insuring each other. That's why it's called Omaha Mutual Insurance. Because all of Omaha is together in it. And when one Omahayan goes down, the rest of the Omahayans will pay for it, and vice versa. Does that make sense? Yes? No?
Yeah.
Okay, now, mutual fund. It's exactly what Tyler said. Say that Honolulu County, remember we go back to that example. You're one buyer, you got to foot $500 to buy their bond. But say that you don't have that much. Say you only have $100. And what if everybody here had $100? And what if we all put our $100 together, we could actually buy a bunch of these bonds?
That's a lottery pool.
And then when the bonds mature, we split the profits. Does that make sense? You want to do that? Okay, so I'm going to be the fund manager, and I am going to form the Eric Alindogan Honolulu Municipal Bond Mutual Fund. So I'm going to go and I'm going to collect all your $100 bills. I'm going to go to the County of Honolulu and I'm going to buy the bonds. And then at maturity date, I'm going to split the profit between all of us. But of course, I'm doing all the legwork. So guess what I get?
Percentage.
Exactly. I'm going to charge you
Management fee.
a management expense. Management expense. Okay? But you're not doing any of the work. I am, so it's only right. Okay? So what happens is you have more buying power because you're buying together with a bunch of investors. And you don't have to do any of the work. Okay? That is what is called a mutual fund. And so you can buy bond mutual funds, number 2. Okay? Now, there are short-term bonds and long-term bonds. Okay? Now, what does that mean? Short-term is less than 30 days. You're lending your money out in less than 30 days, and you get paid in less than 30 days. Short-term, well, medium-term and long-term are beyond 30 days. And if you only have $100, say you just don't want to buy Honolulu bonds. Say you want to buy US bonds. Say you want to buy bonds from France, from Italy, from China, from Japan, from Timbuktu. Okay? How are you going to do that? You only have $100. Well, what if there's a mutual fund that pools everybody's money together and buys from France and China and Timbuktu? Well, you put in $100 and you are actually now an investor in all those countries. Does that make sense? Mutual funds provide what is called
Diversification.
remember that advice on Sabbath morning? King Solomon says pretty much diversify and don't risk more than you can lose. The way to do that is going to mutual funds. Okay, now there is something called an exchange traded fund. Traded fund. Also known as an ETF. This is an alternative to a mutual fund that does not really come with an active management expense. It usually is cheaper to maintain, but you kind of have to keep an eye on it more. The thing with mutual funds, you have managers who are watching it for you. ETFs, you have the diversification. For example, I can buy the entire stock market with just $100 because I would buy the total stock market ETF. For $100, I will buy 0.0001% of every company that exists on the stock market. ETFs provide diversification as well as mutual funds. Does that make sense? Or am I losing everybody?
So on ETFs, you kind of self-manage though?
They are what you call, these are what you call active managed funds, where there's a manager who's every day going up and in. These are more like, they are set on autopilot. So the manager sets everything up and it just kind of flips the autopilot switch and it just kind of goes on its own. And because a computer is looking after it as opposed to a manager, he will charge you less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably do a better job.
Okay.
Yeah, probably would.
So now you go back to that square, right? The idea is in bonds, you are making money just like a depositor in a bank. Okay, you make your money through interest paid at maturity. Now, what if you want to buy and sell bonds? Say, for example, Honolulu, remember the Honolulu bond we bought? It promised a return 3 years from now. But say that I don't want to wait 3 years. So I want to get my money now. So what I'll do is I will go to Frank. And I'll say, Frank, I'm going to get $800 back in another year from now. But why don't you give me $700 for my bond, and then you'll make $100 profit next year. So I'm going to sell my bond to Frank. Frank's going to give me my money, I cash out, I'm good to go. Now, buying and selling bonds is what forms the bond market. Okay? So buying and selling of bonds is on the bond market. So you will hear the stock market and you will hear the bond market. Okay. So discount trading, buy and sell, advantages. There's predictable rates of return up front. Your principal is preserved if you hold the bonds to maturity. Your disadvantage is that your returns are lower than stocks. And selling is really your only way to make money before maturity. Okay? You can risk losing money on trading, and many bonds are what is called callable, or tellable, some people say. That means that the person who sold you the bonds may want to call it in early. And at that point, there's going to be some issues with that. Okay, so that's a risk. The way to trade in the bond market, you can't do it directly yourself. You have to go through an intermediary called a broker. Okay, can someone name some common brokers? Fidelity, Charles Schwab, who else? Goldman Sachs, What are these financial names that you know? You may know them through companies that are connected with brokerage houses, like Prime America, One Main Financial. Are any of these names familiar? You see them everywhere. A broker that you will see dotted all over the place is Edward Jones. Anyone ever see their offices? Okay. This is what these guys do.
For treasury bonds.
Okay. There's a huge one called Morgan Stanley. Have you heard of them? Okay. So these guys are the powerhouses that run the economy. All right. Those are an introduction to debt investments. Do you have any questions? All right. Now, fold your paper like this, down the center. And now we're going to look at equity investments. So the equation was assets equals what? Liabilities plus equity. Liability investing is what you call debt investing or lending your money. You do that by being a depositor or a bondholder. Now we're going to move into equities, which is ownership investments. This is going into business now. You're not lending your money anymore, you're actually using your money to go into business. You can either own a business directly or you can own it indirectly. Let's look at the first square there. If you own a business directly, what are you called? Not a sole proprietor, you're just called a proprietor. You're someone who's in business. Okay, now, when you go into business, you could either be the only owner of the business, or you could be in there with other co-owners. If you are the only owner of the business, you are a sole proprietor. Okay? If you are in business with multiple owners, you are either a partner in the business or you're in a corporation. Well, you can be a one-person corp like an S corp, but anyway, that goes
liability
beyond.
corporation.
Right. So essentially, if you're going to go into business, you either go into business by yourself or you go into business with other people. Right? Now, that could be any type of business, or you can go into land investing, which is a type of business, but essentially it's a whole market in and of itself. So you have all kinds of other business, and then you have real estate business. Okay? How do you make your money if you go into business or real estate? Well, your money is going to come from business profit. You sell high, okay? You buy inputs low, and you sell your product high. The difference between what you got it for and what you sold it for is your profit, right? So I'm selling bright green glass cleaner. Okay, I'm gonna sell this to you for $3, but I happen to get it from my supplier for $1.50. So, how much is my cost?
$1.50.
How much is my profit?
$1.
That's how I make my money. That's the average business, right? Now, real estate. The same way. You flip houses, buy and sell. Okay, or you can do this part, rental income. So you have business profit, you make profit from buying and selling, and you also make it from growing and expanding. So you started a business, you can sell your business. Okay, if you started your business from scratch, and then you find someone who's willing to pay $1 billion, like some of these tech startups, that some savvy kid got on a computer and made an app, and then made this whole thingy, and then some big company like Yahoo or Google says, oh, we like that, we'll buy it from you for $1 billion. Bang. Right? So business profit, growth and expansion, If you're in real estate, you got a house, a second house, how are you going to make money off of it if you don't sell it? You rent it out. And while it's being rented out, property values are increasing, so you have property appreciation, so that you can sell the house later. You not only got money from the rent, but you also got money from the rise of price in the house. Make sense? If you go into business directly yourself, the advantages is you're in control and you get all the profits. Right, Justin? Just-in-time towing. He's a sole proprietor. Okay? All these things we mentioned, those are advantages. He's in control. It's funny because I like Justin. He says, we ask him, can you do something tomorrow? He goes, well, I have to go ask my boss. Who's his boss? Okay. He's in control, he gets all the profits, but the disadvantages are he has to pay all his expenses, his time, and he's got all the headaches. Okay? So when you own your own business, you are your own boss, but you also pay all your own expenses, it takes up all your time, and you get all the headaches. Okay. Now, intermediary people that you will need to deal with, or that you will need help from. If you're in real estate, of course you deal with real estate agents. When you're setting up your business, you deal with lawyers. And there's a whole host of other intermediaries that you may want to deal with. Okay, who here has their own business? I see at least 3 people who do. Okay, is what I said here true?
No.
No? What part is not true?
If you enjoy it, there's no headaches.
Ah, nice. I like that. So if you're going to go into business, do something you enjoy, right? Good for you, Justin. Okay, next. What if I don't want to go into business for myself? How about if I become part of someone else's business? Okay? So that would be the last square. Instead of owning the business directly, I would own the business indirectly. And when you own businesses indirectly, what are you called?
Shareholder.
A shareholder. Aha. This is where we get into stocks. Okay? If you want to indirectly own, Alamamana Mall. Do you want to own it?
No.
Okay. Yeah, let's say Bishop Tower. Or let's say Aloha Tower. Do you want to own it? You can. Indirectly. Okay. So what happens is this. You've got various chunks of indirect ownership listed here. You've got corporate shares. So that means if there's, let's say Lima owns Aunt Lima's
Bakery.
Careful.
Okay, Aunt Lima's assisted living extravaganza hotel. Okay, and she owns it, but she is looking for more money to expand the operation. Okay, and build a second tower. She could issue bonds and sell us bonds, or she could come up to Alan and say, hey Alan, I'm going to take the value of my company, which is right now valued at $1 billion, and I'm going to break that up into 100 pieces. And I'm going to sell you one of those pieces. Okay, so what's $1 billion divided by 100? Or let's just do it this way. $1 billion, and she decides that she's going to sell 1 billion shares. So what's the price of each share? $1. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay? We're all going to now put up $1. Okay? We're going to give $11 over to Lima, and we are now indirect owners of Aunt Lima's assisted living extravaganza hotel. Okay? And when she reaps the profits, she's going to minus the expenses, and then she's going to give a portion to us. Okay? Say that she makes an $11 profit. And, no, say she makes a $20 profit. And she decides that she's going to take $8 of that and reinvest, or pay for expenses and reinvest it into the business. And she's going to take and distribute $11 to us. You paid in $1, you're getting $1, and you haven't even sold your share yet. What is it called when you get payment or shares of the profit on a share?
Dividend.
It's called a dividend. That make sense?
But we wouldn't get $1 if she had 1 billion shares.
Yeah, I know. Just to make the math simple.
11 divided by 1 billion.
Okay, so that's how you make your money. Do you see that? Dividends and distributions. So you have, that was for a private company. Now you have companies that are publicly traded. This time, Lima doesn't want to just sell shares to people she knows. She wants to sell it to everybody in the world. And she doesn't know who they are. So she has to take her company public. What does that mean? She has to take her shares and she has to put it in a marketplace where everybody in the world can access it and buy and sell it. And where she puts her shares, or the stocks in her company, would be called a stock exchange. And Lima would list her company under a symbol. Lima Rose Extravaganza Hotel. So Lima Rose Extravaganza Hotel. So her symbol on the stock market will be LRH. And the price per share will be $1 per share. And you look at that, and Colleen looks at that, and we're now on the stock exchange. The biggest one in America is the New York Stock Exchange, New York. So NYSE. So Colleen, she's an investor, and she wants to become part owner. So she goes on the stock exchange, and she talks to her broker at Fidelity or Prime America or Charles Schwab or any of these places, and she says, I want you to buy 1 share. She becomes now a stockholder. Now let's say that because everybody likes Lima, she's so nice, but a bunch of people don't know her, right? But then what? Okay, but there's companies that do an analysis of her company, and they see, wow, Lima manages this thing's really good. They looked at the income and expense, and they're like, this is a good company to buy in. Everybody, thumbs up. So that's going to catch her eye, your eye, her eye, and her eye, and what's that going to do to the price? It's going to go up. All of a sudden, overnight, the share price went from $2 to $10. So, what is Colleen going to do? She bought it at $1. Sell it! She's going to sell sell it at 10 bucks. She bought it at 1. So how much profit did she make? $9.
And then she had to pay $9.95 for the trade, so she
Yeah,
actually
so
lost
there's going to
95
be
cents.
trading commissions and stuff from your broker. Let's take another $1 off of that. So $8. This is what you call stock market trading. Make sense? Okay. Now, so we were on number 1, number 2, company stocks publicly traded. Now number 3 and number 4 and number 5 are how the majority of people participate in the stock market. Most of us do not have money to buy shares in so many different companies. I mean, there's millions of companies out there, so you'll need millions of dollars if you're going to buy individual shares. So what people do is they make a stock mutual fund. We pool our money together. We have a fund manager and a mutual fund who goes and invests. So for example, there is the I can sell you the entire stock market. So there is real ones. Okay, I get a real mutual fund now. We can call it the Vanguard Total Stock Market Mutual Fund. And one share, I think now, is over $100. Let's say $150 per share. So I go to my broker and I say, ooh, I want to buy the entire stock market. He said, no problem. Give me 150 bucks. He does that, and let's say there's 1 billion companies in the stock market. So you take 150 divided by a billion, comes out to run small, 2%. So you now own 1 trillionth of each company on the entire stock market, right? That's what you call your mutual funds, stock market mutual funds. Exchange traded funds, number 4, same thing. Real estate investment trust, number 5. Instead of doing this with the stock market, you would do it with real estate companies. For example, you know all those buildings downtown? They're not owned by individuals. They're owned by, when you're driving downtown, and then there's a vacancy in one of the commercial buildings on Bishop Street or Nimitz Highway or anything, have you ever seen something like available lease, and then it'll say Douglas Emmett or Central Pacific Properties? You guys see these? Yeah. Okay, who are these? Who are these things? Who are these people? Okay, so basically you want to lease space in Aloha Tower. Aloha Tower is owned not by an individual, but by conglomerates. So for example, Douglas Emmett Central Pacific Property is what you call a REIT. It stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. These conglomerates own huge properties and lands. In fact, Central Pacific Property and Douglas Emmett own quite a few of the business buildings downtown. If you want to own part of Aloha Tower or Ala Moana Mall or Pearl Ridge Mall, or what buildings are there here? Waikele, or what's this? What's the mall? Kamakani Ali'i, the new mall in Kapolei. You want to own parts of that? You can, because they're all owned by real estate investment trusts. Real estate investment trusts sell shares on the stock market. If you buy shares of them, you basically buy parts of all those commercial properties. Okay? And that's number 5, REIT. Number 6, indirect business ownership, is called royalty trusts. Say that royalty trusts have more to do with natural resources like oil. Say for example, Sonny was mowing his lawn and he decided to plant a tree, and so he started digging. And as he dug, all of a sudden this black stuff just started squirting up. Oil, right? So he decides, wow, let me contact the people who know how to deal with this, and I'm going to basically get investors and stuff to help me get this stuff out of the ground, and they will get some shares of the proceeds from the oil. And I create what is called an oil royalty trust. You want to own shares of oil fields all around Texas, North Dakota, South Dakota, the shale oil. Are you familiar with all of that? Okay, you can be part of that through royalty trusts. And number 7 is all the other businesses that are out there that will allow you to participate in them. How you make your money through being a shareholder: dividends and distributions, share price appreciation, right? Selling low, buying low, selling high. The advantages are that you will get higher long-term returns than bonds or deposits. The disadvantages are that there's high volatility, which means the prices go up and down really, really fast. Okay, and you can never tell how far up or how far down it will go. It's unpredictable. Okay, so you have a higher risk, just like you have a higher rate of return that you will get, you will have a higher risk of losing money. Okay, your intermediary again for shares is your broker. That was a lot, wasn't it? Do you have any questions? Now, I want to talk about risk and time horizon. Don't risk money that you can't afford to lose. Now, you may have that $3,000 we had here, and say that you, your emergency fund, you built up 3 to 6 months. You're saving up for future purchases, which is your car, but of course your money is going to be parked in a bank account for, what, 3 years or so? I mean, you want higher interest, so you want to park that somewhere else. So you want to park it in your safe short-term holdings, which would be your bank. So the idea is, the closer in time you need your money, the less risky you want to go into investments. The longer time you have, the more risky you can afford to be, right? So short-term holdings is money that you need within 3 years. You need that to be very accessible, so don't put it in anything risky. Medium term is 3 to 5 years. You can take some risk. Long term is 5 years or longer. You can take even more risk. If it's like your entire career, like retirement, you can afford to take some risk, higher risk with that, because you have time to recover if things go bad. Okay? So, reward and risk. What's the relationship? The higher the reward,
The greater the risk.
the greater the risk.
Directly.
All right, so Low risk here, high risk here. Your lowest risk, lowest returns, CDs, cash, money market mutual funds, government bonds. Your next level of risk with higher return, U.S. stocks, high-grade corporations, and income stocks and conservative mutual funds. Riskier beyond that are growth stocks, which are stocks that tend to fluctuate much in price. And then growth-oriented mutual funds, again, having to do with stocks that rise. And then rental property. And number 4, I don't advise anybody to go there unless you are super, super experienced. And that's speculative stocks, options, commodities, and other high-risk investments. If you don't know what that is, don't even worry about it. I don't encourage anyone to go there. Okay? Now, is stock market investing gambling?
It depends. If you know what you're doing or not.
We're going to talk about market indexes. Okay, it's 8:30. Do you guys want to call it quits here, or do you want me to explain this? What do you feel?
I'm already here.
You're already here. Anybody else? You want me to go? 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you heard of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the NASDAQ, S&P 500, and all of that on the news? What exactly is that? Well, it's what you call a market index. And a market index is something that shows you the trend of the general market. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average is the purple here. It shows you from 1975 to 2000 something. And what the Dow Jones is, it's numbers that track the 30 largest companies on the stock exchange. And the idea is these companies are so large and they're involved in everything in the economy that by tracking them, you get a fair idea of how the rest of the economy is, just by looking at those 30 companies. Those 30 companies are what you call blue chip stocks, which are the highest quality stocks. They are names like Apple, Google, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, stocks like that. When you see how those stocks move, you basically get an indicator of the rest of the economy. Okay, so you will see the Dow Jones rose 100 points. The Dow Jones dropped 360 points in one day. And everybody goes crazy. You see that on the news. Just know this. When the number goes up, it's good. When the number goes down, it's bad. Okay. The NASDAQ stands for the National Association of Security Dealers and something. Forget. Okay. The NASDAQ is a market index that tracks technology stocks. Okay, this is more where you would have like Google and Microsoft and Apple and all that stuff. But it would go more like Samsung, LG, what are the other technology companies out there?
Cisco.
Sony, all those. Okay. The S&P 500 stands for the Standard & Poor's 500. That's the name of the company who developed it. They look at the 500 most traded stocks on the stock market. Now, people go crazy with the ups and downs. Okay? Oh, by the way, there is the MSCI World Index, and this tracks stock markets all over the world. Now, I want you to notice something. Everybody goes crazy because it goes up and down. So one day, Donald Trump announces sanctions on Iran, right? That just happened. All of a sudden, stock market's going nuts. People are selling, people are buying other things, people are doing this, people are doing that, everybody goes nuts. And then the housing market crashes, and everybody's selling their stocks and doing this and doing that, or Apple announces the new iPhone 11, and everybody goes in and buys stocks, and before you know it, everybody's doing this. It's crazy. But I want you to notice something. Here's 1969. Here's 2012. What do you notice about the value of the stock market?
It appreciates over time.
It appreciates over time. Guess what? Doesn't this look like your life in sanctification? You got the ups and downs, but that doesn't matter as much as the direction where it's headed. When you invest in stocks, it has to be a long-term venture, because you're not buying by your emotions over here. You're putting money and you're letting that grow over time. So that in 1969, had you put in $100, if you just did not do anything and just left it in there, by 2012, you would have had, what's that number? Probably $1,200. That's the best way to play the stock market. Don't go into the craziness that people go in today. This is what I was talking about in Sabbath. People are drawn by get rich quick. And what they do is they try and make money on the short-term drops. Now you can do this, it's not bad, but the majority of us are not skilled enough to do it. Because what people will do is, see, the price is high here, and then it drops, right? And then I'll buy shares here, and it goes up, and then I'll try and sell it, and I'll make some short-term money here, but then it drops again. And then I'll try and buy here, and then sell here and make a little money. The problem with doing that is, this is so unpredictable, it's hard to tell when it's going to go up or when it's going to go down. So you basically will make money as much times as you're going to lose money. And basically, sometimes you will lose, just when you think it's going up, it's actually going to go down. When you think it's going to go down, it's going to go up. And it's nuts. So unless you're what you call a seasoned day trader, which means you specialize in this stuff, you can make a lot of money off the short-term fluctuations. A lot of these rich Wall Street people guys do that. But the majority of us, we're not that skilled.
You usually have to have a lot of equity to put into stocks too, because people are trading thousands of shares at a time.
Yes, exactly. It is a nutty, if you're a stockbroker, oh my goodness, this stuff will drive you nuts. You'll have like 1 million computers at your disposal who are tracking this stuff by the millisecond. Okay, so the idea is, real investing is growing value over time. It's the tortoise over the hare. Make sense? So going back to this, when you're looking at the US stock market, in 1975 it was here. Even though we went through all kinds of recessions and depressions, and this was the bubble, the technology bubble in the what do you call it? Is that the .com era? Where all these internet companies came and everybody was buying them like crazy.
Yeah, .com bubble.
Yeah. By the way, this resembles also Bitcoin, which is why I was telling everybody. You know, some people got upset because I knocked cryptocurrencies. It's not so much a cryptocurrency that's bad, it's the way people are playing it. What's happening is Bitcoin is rising, 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 and then it hits a point where the people who are really smart in the market are going to dump shares because they're cashing in, because they see the price is so high. When the price is high and you have shares, you're going to make money because you're going to sell at that point. When you sell, what's that going to do to the price?
Drops.
It's going to make it drop. And because this stuff happens in the milliseconds, you're not going to have time to respond. Sometimes you could have invested so much because you're like thinking it's going to go up, 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 and then in 1/10 of 1 second, boom, everything is gone. That's the riskiness, which is why I tell people, if you see something like this, don't get into it. Keep a long term. Focus on this, not on that. Okay, so if you put in 1975 and you just left your money in the stock market and you came back in 2008, look how much profit you would have made from this to this. Does that make sense? That goes for all investing, whether you own your own business, whether you're... Don't get caught by the get-rich-quick mentality. Okay? Okay, so pretty much that's the end of our presentation. You have with you on your handout the basic categories of investing. You have your exposure to the stock market and stock indexes. And pretty much you know what the retirement plans that are available to you. Lima, were you here when we talked about retirement plans? Yeah, you were here. Yeah, you have an IRA.
Yeah, but that was, oh.
Yeah, that slide. Okay, so just quick review. We looked at our income over our lifetime, our preparation for retirement through these savings plans. We looked at, a typical $500,000 income family and their savings, their investment level for retirement, their investment level for non-retirement. We looked at putting money to your emergency fund, paying off your mortgage early, saving for future purposes, and then putting money in for investment. We looked at what all these are. We looked at what all these are. Now, we looked at the time frame of when you need the money. The last thing I need to talk about is your personal risk tolerance. Some of us are, by nature, more aggressive risk takers. We have less fear. Some of us are more timid, and we're more afraid of losing. We're more concerned about losing than gaining. Everybody has a different risk tolerance. Okay? You need to gauge yourself. They have online questionnaires you can fill out to find out what type of investor you are. Are you the aggressive entrepreneur who likes to take big risks? Or are you sort of like the timid guy who just wants to move small and it doesn't matter if you don't gain much as long as you don't lose a lot? That all depends. Okay? Any questions? What did you guys think of this? Did you understand or was it too far-fetched? Of course Mike, I know, understands it all. But did you learn something from this? Okay. All right, well it's 8:45, time to close, unless anyone else has any comments. All good?
Yes.
While we stand for prayer. Can we have a volunteer to pray? Bernie?
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time that we can take up in the busy week schedule. Thank you so much for the presentation, Lord. Pastor has given us, Lord. Each one here take what we learn, Lord, and the Holy Spirit guide each one. We pray as we go on today, Lord, you direct us. Send your angels to protect us, and we ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen. I forgot to mention, if you plan to go into real estate investing, make sure you look this up. 1031 tax exchange. It will be helpful if you have investment properties. Okay, thank you, and that's your homework. and have a good night.